I already looked over the patch and skimmed everything. Overall, I think this is a huge step in the right direction. Obviously, not everything is fixed, but I do think that the way that they're changing the game right now gives me a lot of hope that future changes will look more in line with this, which is really good. I'm very, very happy with how they've approached this patch so far. Obviously, we'll go over everything. The direction that they're taking with patching the game so far has been kind of controversial for a lot of people. This patch, I think, is a huge step in the right direction. And again, a lot of hope for future patches and how they're going to do stuff in the following patches. Some of my problems in the past has been that they've been swinging really hard one way or the other with super heavy-handed changes. They've been saying, oh, we think this thing is a problem. Now we're going to gut 3 aspects of this thing or buff 3 aspects of this thing. And it's really led to this like super swingy patch feel where something is like really way too easy on one patch and way too hard on another, or vice versa. They've kind of stopped doing that. They're doing more gentle adjustments now and sort of seeing where they land, which is really, really good to me. So let's go ahead and get into the patch notes version 0.104. Hey Slayers, we're back to updating the beta branch this week. Here's an overview of our goals with this patch. On Ascensions, when it comes to general balance, the base difficulty is quite hard right now. I agree with this. We're continuously adjusting this baseline difficulty to make it more accessible for a wide range of players while also continuing to deliver a challenging game at the highest ascensions. Both of these statements are very, very good to see, and I think it shows in the patch. But what I do want is the game to be accessible for new players, while at the same time feeling like I have a reason to grind it for 10,000 hours, right? There needs to feel like a payoff for putting a lot of effort into getting good at the game. And I still want it to be approachable to people that have not already done all that groundwork inside of Spire 1 or put in a ton of hours into Spire 2 even. Like, the game should be fun for a wide range of people. So now I think what they're doing is making it just more appealing to all camps. And I don't see how anyone can really be upset by this. So, similar to the first game, completing runs of Slay the Spire 2 at the highest difficulty should feel like a monumental achievement for a fraction of players devoted to understanding the ins and outs of the game's mechanics. Upon beating your first run, we added a message to communicate this intention for the Ascension system. Amazing stuff to see. Super happy. I feel very seen right now. It feels like they want to care about like their competitive community basically, and that's a really nice thing to see. On Doormaker, we are currently monitoring the Doormaker and looking at a combination of in-game feedback, social media posts, and metrics. We want to give players time to adjust a bit, otherwise we'll be balancing around knee-jerk reactions. Again, kind of what I said already, like, I don't want them swinging too hard one way or the other and like trying to overcompensate for people being upset. I think Doormaker is honestly kind of the easiest Act 3 boss. Whether that's a hot take or not, you can feel free to roast me for it, but yeah, that's just been my current feelings. And they said, currently, from looking at millions of runs, Doormaker's overall difficulty / win rate is in a good place. Slightly weaker than the other Act 3 bosses, both in kill rate and damage dealt. However, we do want to ensure that its mechanics aren't too abrasive against certain playstyles. What I think this is that Doormaker feels worse to play against if you're not prepared for it, but it does make me think about the mechanics and you have to go into the fight with a plan. I think as people get more used to it, sort of similarly to Heart, if they just dropped Heart into the current game, new players who have never seen that before would be like, this is the most unfair thing I've ever seen, right? And now I think we have something similar that's like a kind of abrasive boss that makes you think, but is honestly not too like difficult in terms of once you actually use the mechanics, how you play around them. Miscellaneous. In other news, we've also got a few card reworks, new badges, and a balance pass. Notably, a Niao's Furies buff is here, which is huge. One-off request in the future we've added is an error message when in-game feedback is not received. So that should make it clear when your feedback was able to be properly submitted. We've also got a ton of fixes for various crashes and bugs, as well as cool new art for some cards and a certain agent. Okay, content. Added 3 more badges. Damage Leader dealt the most damage to enemies in multiplayer. Debuffer applied the most debuffs in multiplayer. Coco Combo played 20 cards in a single turn. And now we get to the real meat and potatoes of the patch and what I'm pretty happy to see here. Ironclad, reworked conflagration card. Old conflagration. Attack, cost 1, rare, deal 8 to 9 damage to all enemies, deals 2, upgraded to 3 additional damage for each other attack you played this turn. This card was entirely unpickable, complete garbage. And now we have a massive rework and buff here. New is an attack that costs 1, deal 2 damage to all enemies, 4 upgraded to 5 times. This is essentially Pummel from the first game, just AoE. And if you know anything about how Pummel is, it's basically a huge strength payoff. So when you have like 2 strength from Inflame or something, this is benefiting from that 4 or 5 times. Ironclad 1 really lacked this strength payoff in this game. We lost Heavy Blade. We really don't want to pick Sword Boomerang, which is like the real big one, and we lost Pummel from the first game. And now we have Pummel that does not exhaust and is AoE. So this card is really insane. It's something that's worth speculating on. Like overall, 8 AoE is like pretty decent. It's basically just like a cleave, and in this game, cleave is pretty alright. But the actual ceiling of the card is way higher. So if you have strength and you can loop this card multiple times, there's a big payoff for it. Strength was already pretty good, so this is a massive, massive buff. Next up here, we have reworked Drum of Battle card, which he'll get to down below some of the reasoning behind this. But Drum of Battle, power, cost 0, uncommon, draw 2 to 3 cards. At the start of your turn, exhaust the top card of your draw pile. This was a very clunky card to play around, only entered the deck very infrequently with some really specific synergies. And now it says, cost 1 uncommon, draw 2 cards. When this card is exhausted, gain 2 upgraded to 3 energy. This is essentially similar to Sentinel from the first game, and it's a skill, so it is reusable. If you just want a reusable 1 cost draw 2, that exists, which Clad actually has a use for. There's like some runs where you want to do like a Pummel Strike sort of loop with Bloodletting or whatever it is, or you maybe make this cost 0 energy or whatever, and you just need active draw cards to do this sort of loot payoff thing, and maybe play like your 0 cost cards. So having access to that is not a bad thing. I don't think you're really picking it for the first thing. What this really is good for is it says when this card is exhausted, gain 2 to 3 energy. That's going to let you basically have Burning Pact Fuel to accelerate and dig deeper into your deck. It's not got a bad floor because if you brick, you're happy to play 1 energy, draw 2. That's not, again, why you're picking it, but it's not going to rot in your hand. And that's sort of similar to how Sentinel was just sort of a block card. Like you never wanted to be playing Sentinel as a block 8 card or whatever. It's a consolation prize for when you don't line your big combo off. But your payoff now is that you get a card that you want to exhaust, and then you get a bunch of energy. And so you can do second win stuff with this. Corruption Drum of Battle is going to be really, really real. If you have Corruption and you play this, it's draw 2, gain energy, which is absolutely disgusting. That's just nuts. Against Door, this helps a lot. So if you were struggling against Door, this can be a tech card to add in, because on the exhaust turn, you get to exhaust for free. So again, it's like playing a little offering for free. That's really sick. Drum of Battle was kind of cool beforehand in terms of like the spots it was like good in. It felt good to pick because it was a card that never saw play. And I do like it when cards are quote unquote bad and have really niche applications. So I'm a little sad to see that sort of thing go, but I do think it's interesting and probably better for the game that this card is more widely pickable. And Anthony says, Drum of Battle was previously the lowest pick uncommon Ironclad card, which I fully believe, and generally unpopular, which I also believe. This rework attempts to put it in a more interesting spot and add some synergy to exhaust decks. Conflagration had low pick rates and middling win rates for a rare, while also feeling more like an effect that belonged on the Silent, caring about number of card plays, which I've mentioned before. It has been reworked into a simple AoE card that can act as a strength payout. So I'm glad they're aware of this. I don't love the wording of exhaust decks because I don't really think that's a thing. You're not just like slamming all the exhaust cards into one package. Exhaust is just a standalone powerful mechanic, which maybe is a bit of a misunderstanding or maybe just like not as carefully worded as I would like, but it doesn't really matter. The numbers will likely need tuning to get into a desired spot, but this should feel like a more appropriate part of the Ironclad's kit, which I agree with. I think this is really, really nice to see. And Clad now is starting to feel like it has more identity. There's still a lot of random cards that you don't really want to pick. Like if you watch my Ironclad over-explained run that I posted today even, you would see that like every card reward I got inside of Act 2 in that run was basically unpickable. It's just all common attacks. And Clad had that issue in the first game. You would often get to a point where just every card you see is not positive to add. And we're starting to get more cards now that are not falling into that category. So you're not going to feel like you're just skipping every single card again, which is a good thing. Overall, really happy to see this sort of direction, although it will probably just be an overall power shift and a positive thing, especially Conflagration. This is going to be a decent pickup early Act 1 to speculate on, but also even at the end of Act 1, if you're just lacking strength payoff and you have someone in your deck, like you don't really need to upgrade it. It's going to be pretty strong already. If you have Vajra, if you have Enchants that you manage to get, really, really strong. Like there are a lot of enchants in this game that just having a card that works well with like the Sharp enchant or the Momentum enchant that gives 5 damage every time you play it. Clad really didn't have that before. And so now having a sort of payout for that on top of having strength payout all in the same card is really, really nice. It feels like an actual worthy of a rare slot now. Okay. Next, we go to reworked Regent Parry. Old parry uncommon power costs 1. Whenever you play Sovereign Blade, gain 10 to 14 block. New parry uncommon power. Sovereign Blade now gains 10 to 14 block. If you're not reading this carefully, you might not understand what this actually means. And he explains it below. It says, this means parry's block is displayed on the Sovereign Blade card and is now also affected by powers like Dexterity and Frail. Frail is a bit of a nerf, which I think, honestly, I'm okay with. It's going to have, like, higher ceilings. I think one of the things that a lot of people have been asking for is for parry to work on the multi-hit Sovereign Blade power, so you can combo that together and block, like, 20 instead. Downside is, also as mentioned in chat here, it does not work with Panic Button now. So overall, I think this is a nerf. I don't think Regent's really getting a ton of dexterity and scaling with this, but that's kind of okay for me. Anthony says, parry's numbers are looking correct now, but we think it will be more fun showing the effect on the blade itself. I agree. Relics and powers now being able to interact with the blade, the block should open up new fun interactions. Also agree. Again, I think it's mostly a nerf, but there's fun things that can happen with this. As a result of this change, its numbers may need further tweaking in the future, but we will start with as it is. Again, I'm very happy that he's not just changing a bunch of stuff and changing the numbers all at the same time. I think it's good from a design perspective to just change one thing and let it sit and see how it settles. And I'm very happy that that's sort of the approach they're doing now instead of swinging for the fences. Next up, we have Reworks Axe Bots combat to have just a single, more challenging Axe Bot. I will play this in the console and we'll see what it does. I'm curious. It's only one, yeah. So they still respawn. It's just they do different stuff now, because I noticed he's like debuffing me with like frail and weak, right? Yeah, his numbers are way bigger, so this feels like actually a fight now instead of just nothing. Let's see, when it respawns, I assume it's just the same thing. It does come in and do the same thing, so you get the turn off when you kill one. And then it looks like it buffs strength now. So you actually can't sit here forever. That's a significant amount of block as well. Yeah, that's like actually a lot. Do they retain strength when you kill them? I think no, right? Oh yeah, it keeps going up. Very interesting. Yeah, actual enemy. I do. Oh. Okay, so future Axe Bots, it looked like they buff for more strength. The last one buffs for 8. So as the fight progresses and you get more power-ups, then this Axe Bot actually just gets really scary. So it kind of feels like a mini test subject. More HP, more strength, and like they scale out throughout the fight, but that's compensated by you having time to set up on the first guy. So I think the idea here is really that you get as much of your stuff set up on the first phase and then get ready to burst them down as they come in. Yeah, way cooler fight. It was super boring before, and now it actually does something. So also just way less time loss. It was super, super boring before. Yeah, still a speedrun killer, but not quite as much. Less animations, half as many. But yeah, overall, like, cool change. Really happy to see an Axe Bot change here. That fight was such a slog. I'm sure the speedrunners are really happy because this fight basically just ruined your run if you're a speedrunner. But it felt like a nothing fight. You walked in and you just killed the guys. They never hit you for very much. And it was just like a huge time loss. So hopefully this is going to be just a more interesting encounter to see instead of something that I'm just like trying to get through. Balance. General. Terminal run modifier can no longer bring a player below 1 HP. Silent. Changed Nightmare card. If you play it and select a card with an affliction on it, that affliction is now removed from the copies added to your hand the following turn. I think this is probably an unintended interaction with Bound from Queen, which probably just a good bug fix, to be honest. Okay, buffed Untouchable card. Upgraded block increase from 2 to 3. That did not need to happen. This card was already insane. People sleep on how good Untouchable is as is with prepared in Silence kit and untouched. Crazy. I don't really feel like the Acro nerf really moved the needle at all or enough to like warrant buffing this. It just feels really out of place to me. This card was already fine and just very strong as is. Okay. Regent. Changed Tyranny card now triggers before Bombardment card. This means that if, for example, Tyranny exhausts Bombardment, Bombardment will be played immediately after. Very cool change. Overall, I don't think these two cards are ending up in the deck very often, but when they do, this is going to feel a lot better. So that's a really, really big change, just immediately being able to drop the Bombardment right away on your turn. So yeah, very cool. Feels like nice quality of life, but also just a buff. Okay, next up, Nerf Reflect card. Block decrease from 17 to 21 to 16 to 20. overall, this card was insanely strong. I think this is maybe in contention for best card in the class. It was just picked on site. I don't think this changes very much. Going 17 to 16, you rarely upgraded this card, so I'm going to ignore the other number. But 16 block for 1 energy is still just a really, really big number. But again, I'm glad they're doing this instead of like over tweaking and nerfing it by like 2 or 3 or something, right? Just tweak little adjustments. That feels really nice to me, and they'll see where it lands and maybe tweak it again. I don't have any problems if they nerf this 15 or 14 or 13, whatever. I don't really care about what number they end up nerfing to. I'm just glad to see that it's not all happening right at once in like a knee-jerk reaction. Okay, Ancients. Buff Niao's Booming Conch Relic, in addition to drawing extra cards, now grants 1 energy at the start of elite combats. That's really, really big. This was already sort of pickable on some maps, and it should actually give you a lot of power inside of Act 1 to farm all the elites. So this feels like not just a consistency buff, but giving energy to this is an output buff, which lets you do a lot more on turn 1. Like 1 extra energy on top of having a bag of prep, that's very strong. And I assume that once we get Act 4 and there's an Act 4 elite in the game, that this might be very desirable actually, depending on how strong that elite actually is. So if that elite is really front loaded and needs you to have a very powerful buff, then this is going to be super good. Already it's pretty big, way more pickable. I really like to see that. Buff Niao's Fury card, instead of selecting randomly, now allows you to choose which 2 cards will be put into your hand from your discard pile. You may now also choose fewer than 2 cards if you want. So this was random beforehand. And now Niao's Fury is sort of acting like 2 Grave Blasts stapled together. That's really cool. What I imagine will happen with this is if you can get a non-exhausting Niao's Fury, this will actually be able to do something in the end game. This is way more pickable now, like especially on Silent that can pull back like 0 cost neutralize or whatever from the discard pile and line up combos is super cool. It's not like as bad to speculate on something like this because like a hologram, for example, does not have a super strong effect. A Grave Blast does not have a super strong effect until you are actually having reasons to pull cards back, right? But this actually just comes stapled with a card that deals like a decent bit of damage. And so a lot more pickable and doesn't fall off super hard into the end game. So this is quite solid. I don't think this is like a top tier option still, but it will probably make you feel less bad when you just sort of brick your Niao and this is on the screen. Like you're not going to feel that awful having this. It's a pretty interesting change, and overall, these are very, very big adjustments to Niao. I will say one thing is that I do think having variance in this game is a good thing. Even if you feel like some runs are unlucky or bad, when you're playing for like streaks or whatever, the most interesting runs are often the ones where the player gets garbaged. And what I mean by that is really that you just don't see good stuff. And so I do want them to still have Niao bonuses that maybe don't feel so good early. Maybe they're only good late game, that sort of thing. And just have it so that you don't always have a good option at Niao. I think what people's knee-jerk reaction is most of the time is if they get bad options, they probably just feel like the game sucks, right? And so maybe they're changing this from a design perspective. I don't really know why, but maybe their idea is that they're trying to make everything at least feel good from the start of the run. What I would like to see is maybe small positive changes, like things that feel good, but maybe not super high potential, like Transform 2 or something, right? Like, if you were going to have just every Niao bonus be like sort of generically good, I think we need the high rolls to not exist. Like you either have really big high roll and a low roll, or you have everything kind of brought more towards the middle, which we'll see. I need to play more and actually make my decision about this later. I think for the longevity of the game, it's good to have bricks. And I know some people get onto me in comments or whatever, like this guy only wants buffs or something, like he wants the game to be too easy. That's not what I'm saying at all. I actually would rather the game be harder. And I think that from a design perspective, I just don't understand. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just don't understand what they're going for. Like if they want Niao to feel all positive or all like sort of swingy, like I'm just not sure, right? If we get more clarification on that in the future, or maybe we'll get more Niao changes and it will make more sense later, then I'll have a better picture of what they're actually going for. I just don't actually understand what they're going for quite yet. Another big change here, buffed Tezcatara's Nutritious Soup Relic. In addition to making our strikes cost 0 and giving them Eternal, now makes all your strikes deal 3 additional damage. That's a really big change. So this is basically Strike Dummy, on top of having just a decent amount of output. And strikes at 6 damage are not often worth playing, even at 0 energy. It kind of just turns them all into angers that you can't get rid of, and that can be really bad sometimes. But having 9 damage strikes is a 50% increase. That's really massive. You could already pick this sometimes on something like Clad, because Clad just wants 0 energy stuff to play with his bash or whatever. You actually don't mind that on something like Ironclad, and that can be like looping payoff cards in the end game. This was already like not unpickable, but now it's just quite strong. I think it depends a lot on your run, of course, and you're up against a lot of other ancient bonuses. But again, I think what they're doing is bumping up the floor of a lot of the ancients and making the bonuses like generically sort of good, which if the game is harder to compensate, again, this goes back to not understanding their design philosophy. If the idea is make the player feel like they're getting good stuff all the time, but increase the difficulty of the game as compensation, I'm all down for that. But I don't think you should be buffing everything and leaving the game as is, and then like the best players in the world are just winning every single run, right? That's what I don't want. So we'll have to see how this pans out. But good to see that they're at least trying to change the stuff that's like been complete garbage for a while and just doesn't see very much play. Okay, enemies. Nerfed Ruby Raider Assassin. Damage decreased from 11 to 12 to 10 to 11. I don't think this matters too much. This fight already, like, you're not even guaranteed to see that. So sometimes it's going to help. I think maybe they were just seeing some data that we don't have, that when you got the Assassin in the fight, people were like dying more often or something. Not sure. Doesn't really matter though. Change Scrolls of Biting have slightly less HP at low Ascension, but slightly higher HP at high Ascension. Change from 31 to 32 to 38 to 39. Now is 30 to 33, 37 to 39. So this is the start of a lot of the changes that I'm very happy to see. One, this is just making the game more accessible to newer players while not really adjusting the difficulty to be lower at high Ascensions. That is exactly what I think the game needs right now. I don't care if they make it harder or whatever for high Ascension. Like, I would actually prefer that, but they should be listening to the new player experience, because those are the players they need to get into the game and make them feel invested. And like, if someone wants to play on low Ascension, they shouldn't be getting punished because balance changes are happening for like someone like me, right? This is just going to make everybody happy. And all the other changes here are basically in the same vein. Change Owl Magistrate now has slightly less HP at low Ascension, but slightly higher HP at high Ascension. Change from 234 to 243 to 231 to 247. So again, a nerf for low Ascension, buff for high Ascension, exactly what I want to see. Slime Berserker now has slightly less HP at low Ascension, but slightly higher HP at high Ascension. Change from 266 to 276 to 261 to 281. So a 10 HP difference between low Ascension and high Ascension now than it was before. Again, really significant. Again, here we have Phantom nerfed at lower Ascensions. Dismember move damage decrease 27 to 30 to 26 to 30. And Slippery power goes from 9 to 8 to 9. So unchanged at high Ascension, nerfed at low Ascension. Perfect. Same thing with Waterfall Giant. Now heals less at lower Ascension. HP healed changed from 15 to 10 to 15. I think Anthony's note here really is just saying that he's trying to do exactly what I just mentioned, which is just make it a little more bearable for new players that feel like they're getting overly punished, and then reward people for getting to the high Ascensions and feeling like they have skill expression, right? Keeping the game difficult at high level while making the game a little bit easier to get into. I really am a big fan of this sort of change. Like, obviously it doesn't affect me in the slightest, but I think for the overall health of the game, it's just a complete positive. Events. Change Slippery Bridge events will no longer offer to remove the same card multiple times unless it is already offered to remove all other cards in your deck at least once. This is, again, lowering variance. I think Knave is not going to be very happy to see this change, but this is going to stop you from just getting owned, where it just cycles back and forth between your two best cards and you don't get like a super low roll potential. While I did not love when it happened to me, I think it's good for the health of the game to have these giga low roll potentials. I really think that getting punished as a player when you get super unlucky puts you in a spot to have to think more when you are forced to lose like a good thing out of your deck. And it puts you into, now, I think, a position where you don't really have to think so much. You just sort of click until you get a bad card, and you're eventually just going to get a bad card. Now you sort of know, like, if you want to skip a card, you're not going to ever have to see that card again. So it makes it easier to make the decision inside of this event, which I don't have strong feelings about, but I think overall, like, maybe not a positive thing for the health of the game long term, but probably a positive in terms of people feeling better about the event and feeling like they're getting screwed over less. But again, I think that this sort of thing is just, my perspective is going to be so different from someone else because I'm kind of like a glutton for punishment. I want the game to be brutal. Like, I want to be punished, but I also don't want new players to feel like they're being unjustly punished for like someone like me. Again, there needs to be a world where like both people can be happy, right? And I think one change that could happen for this is like at low ascensions, maybe there's an event modifier ascension where Slippery Bridge is unchanged for max difficulty and at low ascensions doesn't own you as hard, right? But I like variance in my game to actually punish me sometimes and put me in really awful spots. I think it's just good for the game. Okay, multiplayer. Nerfed multiplayer scaling for enemy artifacts, slippery, and skittish powers. I don't know how much this is a nerf, but we will see. We can load into a multiplayer game and check it. Stratagem card is no longer banned from the colors card pool during multiplayer runs. This banning was originally due to a bug with Stratagem multiplayer, which has now been fixed. Very cool. Buff tag team card replay effect now triggers on deal damage to all enemy attacks too. Art. Added portrait art for the following cards. Feral, not yet. Spite, fight through, hailstorm, synchronize, iteration, voltaic, apparition, and abrasive. Revised Neo's Fury artwork is now centered. Very funny that that got through, I guess. Added Vaku's background art and visual effects. Very excited to see this. I love Vaku's vibes, so we'll see what it is. Added Skulking Colony animations. Very cool. I just love seeing how much polish this game has. Compared to Spire 1 now, when I went back to play it recently, it felt so stale compared to Spire 2. Like, they've really done such a good job at overhauling all the graphics and whatnot in Spire 2. And it looks like, again, they're going to continue to bring more life into the game and make it feel better and more alive. Updated art for the following enemies: Tunneler, Entomancer, and Mauler. Very curious to see this Entomancer change. We will have to find out what that actually means. Updated animation for the following enemies: Vantum, Ceremonial Beast, and Entomancer. I already kind of liked Vantum's animation, so I wonder what that's going to be, because he already has like a unique background now, so maybe it's just extremely cool. But yeah, very interesting. Repositioned Sludge Spinner's death landing spot. Never noticed that being a problem, but maybe I will now. Okay, user interface and experience. Added Ascension first time tutorial pop-up for single player and multiplayer. They needed to do this. I think they, maybe it was just an oversight. An error is now displayed when Steam crashes. Feedback tool now displays an error if we didn't receive feedback. Adjusted hitbox, speech, and intent positions of Underdog's cultists. I've actually gotten owned by misclicking cultists in this fight, like dragging cards to the wrong one. So that was something that did actually impact me and make me play cards in wrong orders, which never feels good. Fixed intents being positioned too high or too low in multi-enemy combats. Bestiary button now looks more locked, similar to how other buttons look locked. The player's hand now animates out of the way while it is in the enemy's turn. Updated ancient card text backgrounds to fit more text and to be very slightly darker and embossed. Set up controller navigation for badges in the game over screen. Added basic controller navigation to badges in the run history screen. Added controller navigation for the player info icons in the run history. Improved controller navigation in the fake merchant shop. Pause menu button controller navigation now wraps. Writing. Brilliant Scarf Relic description now specifies that it only counts card played from your hand. So it's clear that it doesn't count auto played cards. That is very important to actually know. And I'm wondering if Diadem... I don't think it's an oversight. I think it's pretty intentional that Diamond Diadem does not work in this way, because doing like History Course Diamond Diadem just simply does not function the way you want it to. But that relic's already really strong. They don't need to buff it. So please do not buff it. Do not think I'm asking for a buff. Reaper form. Card wording has been changed to make it clear that the doom is applied by Reaper form's power rather than by the played card. Old, whenever attacks deal damage, they also apply that much doom. Now reads, whenever attacks deal damage, apply that much doom. Added translations for various languages. Fixed various translation errors. Bug fixes. General, score separator lines are no longer shown while fetching score or if it fails. Effects that make the next card free to play, Unrelenting card, Void Form card, now properly take precedence over effects that increase the cost of all cards. This was actually very important here. The other thing that this was like, I noticed with Doormaker, the old door, that made things more expensive to play, that it would overwrite the cost of like your power potion or something. And I think maybe they're intending to add that sort of mechanic back, maybe in a different fight, but they realized they needed to actually do this. But yeah, very nice to see. Fixed combat soft lock that could occur after returning to main menu and resuming a run. Fixed crash when applying powers to dying creatures. Fixed crash when closing the game during setup before saves are initialized. Fixed crash when upgrading a card at rest site. Fixed error caused by off-screen epic indicator on timeline screen. Fixed error when unfocusing potion slot during potion removal. Fixed Linux crash during combat when UI elements are removed mid-frame. Fixed crash when entering rooms. That seems problematic. Fix an issue with the game over screen after discovering multiple enemies while playing in Polish. Fix being able to target dead enemies with controller. Fixed crash while opening card pile screen when selecting an enemy with controller. Fixed rare combat errors that could occur when re-entering combat. Fixed rare softlock errors related to writing debug files. Fixed softlock on run histories from older versions of the game. Made save operations fault tolerant to prevent softlocks. Score is now correct when at Ascension 10. Fixed wrong floor count when submitting daily score. Okay, lots of bug fixes. Just skimmed over that really quick. I think if you have realized that these have affected you, you probably know, but I don't think I've really had most of these be a problem for me in particular. Not saying that it's a bad thing that they fixed it, just saying it's probably not very common. Okay, Ironclad. Hell from Beyond card now plays from the exhaust pile after you draw in your hand instead of before. This is pretty interesting. I wonder if this is also going to interact with Tyranny. So if you have like the Prism Relic and you have Tyranny plus Hell from Beyond, don't know. We will see. I'm not sure if Tyranny goes before or after this. Maybe that needs some texting. Fixed Anger card played by Havoc, also exhausting on play. That's very important, actually. Fix being able to select an upgraded card with Armaments card if it is added to your hand by Largesse Plus card. I don't even know what that is. Maybe it's a multiplayer only card. Not Yet card can no longer be generated via a skill potion. Thank God. Silent Fix being able to skip the Survivor card discard selection via the peek button. I've never noticed this, but also very good that they fixed that. Regent. Bombardment card now plays from the exhaust pile after you've drawn your hand instead of before. So what that makes me feel like with the wording on this is that Hell from Beyond actually does work, I assume. We'll see. Need to test. I'm Invincible card now probably triggers before you've discarded your hand instead of after. Regolite Relic no longer gains block from enemies applying statuses. This was very stupid. It's a pretty big nerf, but I think this relic was already crazy, and Regent didn't need it. It's very strong. Summon Fourth card now properly puts existing Sovereign Blades into your hand before forging instead of after. I think what this is really a change to swords that have been exhausted in combat. So like in Door, if you have multiple blades and you exhaust a blade, now it's just a straight buff and they get the 5 summon or whatever from the Summon Fourth. Necrobinder. Fixed crash when Aussie dies during screen transition. Fixed read card always bottom decking the soul card it creates. Defects. Fixed beckons still damaging the player if the combat is ending with lightning orbs. Okay, so one thing I should note here is that silence, if you have poison damage and the enemy dies to poison, you will still take damage from beckon. But I think this is a specific defect interaction because the lightning orb should go off at the end of your turn and poison goes off at the beginning of the enemy turn. So just the way that stuff is ordered there, that's how it should work. But I just wanted to make sure people actually know that that interaction exists. Potions and relics. Fix the boot relic amplifying bad luck's curse damage from 1 to 5 when the player has intangible. That's hilarious. Pretty funny. Self-forming clay relic is no longer triggered by terminal modifiers max HP loss. Ancients, players can no longer roll Tezcatar's nutritious soup blessing if there are no strikes in their deck. That's very nice. Very, very good to see. Although I don't know how often you're going to have no strikes in your deck. Maybe you get lucky with transforms and events inside of Act 1 or something. But yeah, very good to see. That's super annoying when that happened. I think it only happened to me once, but it was very disgusting. Okay, fix Vaku's Whispering Earring Relic not correctly playing Stardust card. Leafy Poultice Relic no longer transforms the upgraded strikes defense from Niao's Talisman Relic if you get both from Niao's Bones Relic. That's very good. That's a new unintended interaction, I'm sure, from last patch. Unceasing Top Relic now triggers properly when Vaku's Whispering Earring Relic plays the last card in your hand. Very cool. Enemies. Fix being unable to discard potions in the Punch-Off event. Fix Paraphrite Illusion keeping its negative strength from Dark Shackles when you kill it for the turn. Okay, so this was actually a thing I was going to make a short for. It was the one unintended, I guess now, whale reset trick, if you're familiar with Spire 1, where you could play Piercing Whale or any sort of strength down. I don't think this is exclusive to Dark Shackles. It's probably any strength down, and the strength would carry over. What I am curious about, because this illusion keeps its strength normally throughout turns, so even when you kill it, it comes back at the same level of strength. I'm wondering if that is still how it works, or if that was also unintended, but it seems like it's only the strength reset and not that scaling throughout the fight. Events. Fix being unable to give the foul potion to the fake merchant.
Fix cards from other classes appearing in the Infested Automaton event. Fix soft lock if you somehow die in the Battle Worn Dummy event. I love how they say somehow die, like, you're just like, they're like, if you manage this somehow, like you play your bloodletting or whatever in the fight. It feels like they're just unnecessarily digging at the player and calling you stupid. All spoils map cards are now removed if you complete the quest and you somehow have multiple. Once again, really funny that the wording is like this. You now get 600 gold for each copy of the spoils map quest card you have. That's sick. You can duplicate it or something and get insane amounts of gold. That's not really a bug fix. That's just like actual buff. Yeah, bing bong. That's cool. Usually that's not going to be the interaction, but like if you Dolly's Mirror, you can literally pay for Dolly's Mirror to get more money. Like your investment banking, you pay like 200 gold into Dolly's Mirror, you get 400 gold back. It's perfect. Okay. Multiplayer. Fix a rare issue in multiplayer when playing Armaments card during the Knights Gang encounter. Fix Pale's Legion and Van Brace Relics not proccing from the owner, applying block to other players. Dense Vegetation can no longer appear if any player has less than 8 HP. Fix Soft Lock related to using Driftwood Relic on your first run. Fix rare soft lock loading into a treasure room when a teammate is using a controller. Fix state divergence related to using a potion just before combat begin. Improved error reporting for a specific rare connection error. You can no longer buy items at the shop while transitioning rooms. This was my bug, the Jason bug. Oh my god, that's insane. Finally. This happened to me so many times. I think I was like one of the only people to ever have this happen. I don't know if I just like specifically clicked on like random spots, but this was like on the release patch I did this and was in the game for a month. That's insane. That's really funny. Okay. Pillar of Creation, Supermassive, and Arsenal cards now proc for the player that played their guest card rather than the player who gets the generated card. The correct error message is now shown for Steam Multiplayer Connection Timeout. Show multiplayer drawings tick box is now correctly localized. You can no longer start a loaded multiplayer game with only one person. Okay. This is a really good patch, I think. It's a lot of buffs, which is what I was expecting. Okay. I'm not necessarily happy that everything's getting buffed per se. Like, I think overall, this is just going to make Max Ascension easier. What I will say is that the overall direction and the things they've said, like their reasoning behind changes, are all really solid. And so while this patch is not directly changing the fact that top players are winning all the time, like 90% plus, it gives me a lot of hope for them addressing high ascension later. I think it is more important right now that low ascension and new player problems are dealt with before veterans of the game like me are having their like things addressed, right? Before I have my problem solved, I would rather have the new players get their problem solved, right? I will stick around and wait for all the changes that are going to be targeted at me. And from what they've said, there are going to be changes that are targeted at top players. And that is a really nice thing to see. Hasn't happened yet, but pretty happy to see that. Overall, there's more interesting stuff happening between the cards. Again, I think stuff is just stronger, but like Niall relics are way more interesting. Some of the relics were like just like unpickable before and really bad, and now they have like more niche spots that they can be useful in. Clad just got a bunch of buffs essentially. I mean, a few cards, but Drum of Battle turning into like a decent card, and Conflagration becoming very strong when it was like very unpickable before is really, really nice. I think the Regent change overall with the Blade is going to be more interesting. Probably a nerf, but interesting, and can do some funny stuff sometimes and make parry more pickable than it is just like as a generic block power that's not very interesting. Silent buffs, whatever, don't make any sense. I don't really care. They'll fix that later, surely. And overall, like stuff like this that just feels cool to do, and you're just happy to have this like bombardment go off. Like you feel like you assemble this really cool combo sometimes. That's the sort of thing that I think this game really needs. You need players to feel like they have really cool stuff happening all the time. And what it seems like is they're adding more space for that, and then they're planning on adding the difficulty later. I would rather have the game feel more interesting and everything be stronger, but the game be stronger to compensate. I think that's the correct thing. I feel like the dopamine that you get from landing a cool combo like this is not to be undersold, and it's really important that people get to do these things. And going forward for the health of the game, I think that's really important. I love all of these changes here that just target new players and help them feel like they're getting owned less. Super, super solid stuff. Very, very happy with this change. Kind of surprised they have not removed the Ironclad healing card, but I guess they're letting that sit around for one more patch before that gets nuked from the game. That's my prediction. We will see.
Okay, I think that's it for YouTube, guys. So say goodbye. If you're interested in catching any of these live, feel free to follow Twitch, follow on YouTube, and check out live streams when they happen. Hope you enjoy it.